brands fail? That is my entire talk, right? Summed up in 6 seconds. Why? Because all of us have got an attention span of less than that of a goldfish. Why perfect brands will fail? Because perfect brands are going to make use of AI. And AI is not a good recipe to create good brands. AI is a perfect recipe to create good products, but good products do not create good brands. Think of it. Everybody has access to AI. It has democratized everything from product formulation to packaging to brand book creation. Everybody has access to same kind of tech stack. What happens when everybody has access to same kind of tech stack? What happens to competence, right? So, AI is antithesis to good branding. But before we jump into branding, let me take you for a bit of a history lesson. The history of marketing and brands. You will be surprised to know that marketing as a word appeared in the dictionary only about 120 years ago, in 1910, as a concept. And brand as a word which we think of it today as meaning, as story, as symbols, as logos, actually has its roots in Netherlands. Brand as a word comes from another word called brander, which means a fire mark which people used to put on their cattles as a sign of identity that this is my cattle. Also, today we think of branding as an asset, but branding actually started off as a liability in ancient Rome. Yes, it actually started off as a liability. So, the emperors in ancient Rome and the authorities used to enforce this law where brick makers and bread makers were supposed to stamp their name on the bread and the brick. Why? Because just in case if the building collapsed, they could trace back the identity of the manufacturer and could punish him. Just because if the king, by mistake, got food poisoning, they could punish the bread manufacturer. So it started off as a liability, but then slowly things started to change. Brand became a story, brand became a symbol. How did it happen? It happened because of Industrial Revolution, which takes me to one of my favorite slides, the three E's and the fourth. The three E's changed everything about consumerism, and it also changed everything that we know of branding today. The first E is called effective. The first wave of brands that were created by the firms which were creating effective products. Think about it. Nobody asked how fast the first car ran or how much mileage it gave. Nobody asked how fast the first printer printed, or whether it could print pictures, or whether it could print multiple characters or multiple languages. People were happy that it worked, right? But then everybody had products that were working. So then came the second E, efficiency. Firms came up with products which are more efficient. My car runs faster than you. My printer has colors. My printer runs on Wi-Fi as well. So it was an era where firms were trying to create more and more efficient products. Then what happens when everybody starts to create efficient products? What do you compete on? You compete on the third E, which is experience. That I'm going to give you a better service experience. I'm going to be available for you when you need me, where you need me, however, whichever. So everything was about experience. Think about it. One of the largest car manufacturers in the world, before they left India, Ford, one of their last campaigns was called Ford Ek Family Wali Feeling. Now think about it, why a car company is talking about feelings? Because experience is how we remember people, how they treat you, and experience is how we remember brands in our mind. But then what happened? Everybody started to give you a good experience. So what do you compete on? And which brings me to the fourth E, evangelism, right? And I'll talk about it, why evangelism matters today. But if you're thinking, why this guy is standing here and giving us all these frameworks and stories, trust me, I've spent past 1,000 days as a research scholar trying to study why people believe in brands. And which took me to a very interesting book by Yuval, which is called Sapiens. And in Sapiens, he introduces a beautiful concept. He calls something that there's something called objective reality. This chair, this a piece of rock, this light, it exists. It exists for everyone. It's defensible. That's objective reality, which all of us agree on. Then there comes subjective reality, experiences that only you have lived. Some taste, some smell, some fragrance exist for you. Your fears exist for you. You're with me so far? Objective reality, subjective reality. Then comes intersubjective reality. When a lot of people have a shared belief, it becomes intersubjective reality. It doesn't exist in real. It exists because people believe it exists. Nations, laws, money. It exists because people believe that money exists and it holds value. Brands exist because you feel they hold value. Without it, they are nothing, right? So that is where I introduced the fourth E. It is also the result of my past 1 year of research that I've managed to figure out that what could be the next E after the first three E's were introduced. So now that I've introduced you to the E's, why do we build brands? And you know how brand building changes in the age of AI. And right before that, I need to introduce another framework, which is called VRINO. Now trust me, this is probably one of the best frameworks I've come across, and it's applicable to life, to brands, to people, to products, to everything. It is a recipe to create a defensible company, a defensible organization, the one that has competitive advantage. Wait, let me correct myself. The one that has sustained competitive advantage. So, what do these four letters mean? V stands for valuable, R stands for rare, I stands for inimitable, and O stands for organize. Now let us understand each of these one by one. V, which is very important. The first thing that a firm has to do is to create something of value, something that others are not creating for the consumer. That's the first thing, right? And every company around you does something valuable. Apple does something valuable, Bose does something valuable, Maruti does something valuable. But doing something valuable is not enough. In fact, if you just do bare minimum, you will be at competitive disadvantage because so many people today can do something of value using AI. Let's say, sir, you manufacture a good skincare product. I'll give it to AI. I'll ask it to reformulate the same product, find me the best manufacturers. I can also do that. So, what do? You bring in R, which is rare, which something that only you have. Now, it could be a proprietary tech, it could be a set of people, it could be your own experience, it could be a formulation, anything that not a lot of people have. Now, when you have something that not a lot of people have, or nobody has, what do? You try to protect it. You try to get a copyright, you try to get a trademark, you try to get a patent. You ensure that those people stay with you. Apple realized after firing Steve Jobs that he was the one bringing I into the Apple, and hence they brought him back. Inimitable, right? And then you create a system around it, which is organized to create companies that have very strong competitive defense. But I've got another bad news for you. See, the age in which we live, especially the past 10 days, have been extremely transformational for marketing managers and for MBA people. And I'll tell you why. First, let me also give you a recap of what has happened in the past 30 days. 4 of the top 10 AI companies in the past 30 days have released their best model. And as always, their best model outperforms their previous model by 85%. Trust me when I say this. I have a client who's building a fragrance company. They are building perfumes. You know what they have done? They have taken data from top 500 selling perfumes across the world, gave it to AI. Then AI has gone out and studied all the Indian brands which have launched in perfumes as a space. And within 3 days, he has a formulation sheet in his hand. This entire process used to take us months and an army of 10 people a couple of years ago. You don't believe me? Go watch out. Mama's CEO has just posted a video where she has said now AI is telling them which product to launch next. AI is in fact also giving them formulations. So creating something which is valuable is as easy as giving a prompt. Just tell AI what do you want and it'll do it for you. Right? Similarly, AI has become exceptionally good in making things organized. You don't need an army of people anymore. to run your company, which is where the last O also goes. So anybody can create something that is valuable, and everybody can become organized to protect their company. So how do you bring in competitive defense? By working on rare and inimitable, right? Um, Rare, which was, earlier it was easier to protect. Now it is no more easier to protect your product. AI will figure out 10 ways to do the exact same thing without violating copyrights and laws. But what is the solution? So if I've given you enough anxiety, I have a solution. I said when you cannot find solution, what do? You return to history. And history tells us something. And when I went and read a lot of history, a lot of anecdotal books on marketing, I realized that some of the best companies in the world are exceptionally good at 3 T's, which I want to share with you today. The first T is called tail, long tail. Best products and best companies are not built on averages. 80% of the people say XYZ, 75% of the people believe in so and so. No, best companies are not built on that. Best companies are built on extreme data points. A couple of years ago, a Baba wearing saffron and doing yoga decided that I'm going to start an Ayurvedic company in India, when the entire data was telling that India is moving towards westernized products. If you had done any survey back then, data would tell you that Indians like either Western companies or products that are inspired from the Western market. But he said, no, I'm not going to trust this data point. I'm going to go to the long tail. The remaining 15%, 5% to people, I'm going to make a product for them. Guess what? The company is over 20,000 crores today. So you got to look at the long tail data points. The second thing, the second T, which is time. Now, time has two parts. Either you've been doing something for years and nobody can do it better than you. You're exceptionally good at design, let's say for Apple. Now, nobody can replicate that overnight. AI cannot create the next iPhone model's design. No AI would tell you that, okay, make 1 camera to 2 camera, 2 cameras to 3 cameras, and 3 cameras back to 1 camera. Nobody would do that. Nobody would give you a strategy that, okay, replace your entire marketing with caricatures and comic figures. Amul did it, right? So timing. So if you can compound on time, nothing like it. Or you can move faster than anybody else. This is what a lot of AI companies in the world are doing. They're moving faster than anybody else, and that is precisely why they have highest valuation in the world capital markets today. And the third T is called tribe. If you can create an army of either consumers or suppliers who stand with you. Now, an exceptional example here is Amul, which created tribe on both the sides, the supply and the demand. Their farmers are their supply network, and on the consumer side, they've got people who are advocates of Amul. Another company called Minimalist in India, they were one of the recent acquisitions by Unilever. Unilever acquired Minimalist for 3,000 odd crore rupees, give or take. Well, it's not a small number to say give or take, but 3,000 crores, ladies and gentlemen, when the company's top line is just 300 crore rupees. Why? Because they were able to create community of extremely loyal customers. So I'm leaving you with 3 things: long tail data points, timing, and tribe. Also, I need to tell you, I've tried and tested both Vryo and TTT in my life. You'd be surprised to know I scored 3 marks out of 80 in my high school in physics. My mom's sitting here in the audience, and she told me when I got back home that, Umang, I've never studied physics in my life, but if I had appeared in this paper instead of you, I would have scored more than you. I failed in my 11th class. I repeated my 11th class in the same school and became the only captain, house captain in the history of 60 years of that school who had failed a class. Every data point said that I was not cut for it. I scored barely 60% in my 12th class. Every data point said I could not make it to IIM. But there are a couple of things that I realized. Well, now I look back, I can be a philosopher and I can say I realized. But back then, I was just doing it for the sake of doing it, right? I realized that I cannot beat my peers at studying. I cannot memorize formulas. I cannot get better at studying. But there's one thing that I can do better than anybody else, which is being on stage. My mother has been pushing me to be on stage since when I was 7 years old. I was better at the stage game. I could talk, I could debate, I could go to an extempo, I could do poetry, well, a little bit of dancing too, and I could bring back prizes. Prizes were important to my school. And they said, we gotta give this guy something. So they gave me captaincy, right? And the same thing I've been using in my life to see what is it that I can do at work that I can do better than anybody else. So I love to talk, and hence, somehow I got into teaching. I got better at teaching. Why? Because I've grown up with teachers, in a family of teachers. So I know how teachers operate, how they work, how to teach, how not to teach, right? So I decided that, okay, I can be a good marketing consultant, but I can be a better teacher. So might as well get into teaching, right? So in life, sometimes there's one more thing other than three T's that can help you win, which is your conviction. And that is where no AI will be able to compete with you. Steve Jobs had the conviction that Apple could become what it is today. Mr. Kurian had the conviction that Amul can become what it is today. And you know what Amul's conviction is? To become world's largest food company in the next couple of years. And I'm sure they will. I don't know the data. It's not a public company, but I know that they have conviction. So as long as you have conviction, you can decipher a lot of things in life. Or, as Frank Sinatra rightly said, do you guys know Frank Sinatra? He's been an amazing singer. Sometimes I knew I bit off more than I could chew. Yes, I took the blows, but not in a shy way. In the end, I did it my way, and I'm sure you can do it your way too. Thank you so much. My name is Umang Maheshwari.